Okay, good evening to everybody. First of all, thank you very much for coming. I arrived from Israel this afternoon after a bit of a 25-hour journey. And Baruch Hashem, I'll be returning home hopefully on Motzei Shabbat, on Saturday night. As Rabbi Lynn started the evening, he spoke about what we're doing here this evening and where we are. And again, we have kids of ours today who are in Lebanon and who are sitting in Yehuda v'Shamron and other places. And we wish them well, and we hope, God willing, that they'll be able to return to their wives as well in reserve duty, and they'll be safe and sound, as well as all the Jewish people. I am standing here with Olami Manhattan, and we're about to start the program here, but I can't really start without saying one word about Rabbi Lynn and his wife Ruthie, who have sacrificed so much as well to be able to allow Rabbi Lynn to do what he does. I've worked with many Jewish educators around the world, and I know that all the people who are here, we know that Rabbi Lynn himself is the flagship Jewish educator of Olami for sure, but with the other organizations that I've worked with. And it's been a true privilege, to have those years and years of friendship and years of working and years of allowing Jewish people to progress in a healthy, beautiful society that Olami has been able to grow and be able to build. I can't stand here and not really say thank you to Mr. Aaron Wolfson, who's here as well, and to the whole Wolfson family, and to Rabbi Kassel and Rabbi Markowitz and everybody else that's involved in Olami, to say thank you very much for the years that you've put faith in J-Roots and in other organizations like us in order to be able to hopefully do the work that we are making a massive change in the Jewish people. Tonight, we're sitting here though with Mark Schonwetter. And you don't know this, but I've been receiving your emails for a number of years from the foundation. And I thought to myself, you know what, maybe one day we'll get to meet. And I didn't believe that how we were going to meet, which will be tonight. We've met first time in person, but we went back to his town on the last trip. And it really was one of the most inspiring moments that we've had together, especially if you ask myself and Rabbi Lynn, over the many years that we've worked together, to be able to do certain things that we were able to do and to follow your story, in the town that you grew up in, and in the town that you hid in at the beginning, and in the town that you and your mother and your sister, survived, and also in the town, of course, that your father was murdered in not so long after the war had started, which you found out in the most cruel way. So we're going to now show you the moments that we were together. And then we're going to be asking Mark to be able, Mr. Schonwetter, to speak a little bit about his town as well as we go along the way. So if you don't mind turning this on. We were on our way into Bjostek, as you can see, to your town. And the first place that we got to was the Jewish cemetery. The Jewish cemetery itself, which your family were involved in making sure that they would come back and give kavod, give honor to the people that once were buried here. The town itself, as we stood in the cemetery itself, all we could think about was the beauty of what this Jewish community must have been like. And your father, Yisrael, who was in charge of the Jewish community at the time, and your grandfather, Fischel, if I'm not mistaken, is buried here in the town. We stood in the cemetery with a group of students who had never met you, but now got to understand who you were and your story. Because every Holocaust survivor, you need to understand their life before, because they had lives before. And when I read about your story before as well, your childhood before, you spoke about your father being a farmer, and you spoke about your grandfather, Fischel, being a farmer as well. I spoke about the land and the beauty of what life was like, before the war. But everything, of course, will change come September the 1st, 1939. For many of us that are standing in this particular cemetery over here, trying to make out what was written on the tombstones, because so many of these tombstones, unfortunately, are worn away. And whenever you go throughout Poland, you find many places where the tombstones have been taken and put into walls, put into sidewalks, put into barns, whatever else they may be. And they've been brought back to the Jewish cemetery later on. And even here, you're seeing the same cases here. And we weren't exactly sure at the very beginning where your grandfather was buried. And so we sent the group out on a scavenger hunt in order to be able to find them. And we were looking at who was buried there, when they were buried, the names of the people. Names of people that you should know that we are some of the people who were the first people to come back to these towns. It's true that Brostek is a town where Jews were, but it's not on the main route of many of the different journeys that go to Poland. We were able to give kavod, to the honor to you, to your family, by putting down the stones, the Jewish stones here, the Even, the Av, Ben, and Neched, father, son, and grandson. And we were thinking about you on this day as well. Okay, as Isabella, your daughter, told us, you were in surgery on this day. And we would have loved to have had you here. And Baruch Hashem, you're sitting here with us today, even having that medical procedure. And it's such an honor for us. We stood in the town, singing the nigun, the tune of the Bedicheva Rebbe, okay, over here, which we had sung previously in a barn earlier on in a town called Chiche, where we taught the group these songs, dance, music. They play such an important part in every journey that we take together. The song itself delves deep into who we are, gets into our soul, and allows us to take ourselves from a place that we are in, the physical space, and move us to a different area itself. We were standing, we made an askara, we made a kel malei rachamim to your grandfather as we stood here, but we knew the end of the story, we were going to be standing by your father too, okay, when we were here. Our next stop from this town was to walk down the main street to be able to come to your house, which is still standing. And here we are, if you can stop the video please, as we stand here with Adam Bartosz, I can see from Tarnov, okay, and your family that's here a few years ago, standing outside your house. And maybe, Mr. Schonwetter, if you'll tell us a few words about what it was like to live in the house as a child, if you don't mind. You have to pick up the microphone and...
Well, before I say a word about that, I want to say to the leaders of the Olami, thank you so much for taking a trip, while taking a trip to Poland, to visit my house. But the most important thing I have to say is to visit the mass grave. Because going then, they gave the honor to my father that he was murdered with other 200 and close to 50 Jewish people in this forest and covered under the ground, and making a trip and showing this, it makes me feel so, number one, happy, but number two, depressed that my father had to go this way. Now, as far here, I remember Mr. Bartosz pretty well because he was always involved in rebuilding the cemetery, helping to rebuild the place where my father is being killed. And he's constantly involved in all kind of events that being done in reference to the Jewish people.
How old were you when you left the house? Do you remember? When you were kicked out of the house by the Germans. How old were you?
When I left my house, I was about 6 years, 6.5 years old that time.
Right. And you remember a beautiful childhood until that time?
And I remember very few items while we were living yet during the war, of course. I do remember few little things. I remember like the Gestapo coming to our house. I remember that when they requested from my father to bring young Jewish men because they need them to work, and they were staying, if you remember, behind on the side of the house.
Yep.
In line. I will never forget. This was the first time as a child I saw the German police walking around, and if a man made any move, the first time I saw that he took his rifle and he hit this young man. He fell down the floor and he started kicking him and kick him again and again. And I couldn't understand why. Why? The man didn't do a damn thing, excuse me.
Yeah.
But that's what was one of the memories.
So one of the stories that you have in this house is when your father, who was a farmer, had his fields on the other side of the river. I think there was a river at the end of the street over here. And there's an unbelievable story which you have to hear of Mr. Schonwetter. As a little kid, he went out to work with his father. He drove the cart led by 2 horses back home.
Yes.
Okay, and as he drove home, there were 2 Gestapo or German soldiers who were driving on their motorbikes on the road. Okay, he couldn't control the horses at the age of 6, and he was able to keep riding but at a very, very fast speed. And the Gestapo fell into the trenches on the other side, and he was able to take the horses into the barn. His mother, who really is the heroine of this story, and you'll hear in a moment.
Right.
Okay, Sarah, his mother Sarah, who passed away 24 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. His mother Sarah realized what had taken place. She took the little boy, Mark, at the time, put him over his knee and started spanking him. When the Gestapo walked into his house and saw this little boy, who they wanted to get hold of, being disciplined by the mother, they realized that the mother was going to discipline her, and she saved his life for the first time. Right. Okay, there were many other times. If we continue with the film, from here, one night, Mr. Puat, who was a person that, of course, is so familiar to the Schonwetters, came over to say that they'd heard that there was going to be, unfortunately, a liquidation of certain numbers of Jews. They themselves had been told by the Gestapo to leave the house, and then we came across this place. And I want you to understand, we decided we're going to stand in the courtyard over here, and we're going to see what will happen. We'll tell the story of what happened here in the courtyard. And all of a sudden, this woman turns in, and these are the most amazing things that happens on these Poland trips, when certain things happen with just out of chance. And the woman said, "Let me show you the barn." And she took us into the house where, of course, your family hid for the first time, and into the barn, which you're about to see right now, that we were able to climb up to the hay that is still there, over the coal, which is the first floor. And myself and Rabbi Lynn climbed up to this place over there, and we were ecstatic to be able to be in the same place that you had hidden many, many years ago. And to the place, of course, that your life was saved again by the Piot family, as the daughter, in her quick wits, managed to tell the Gestapo how many children there were, including you being there at the time. I want you to understand what this was like for the group. To be at the place where we can really say the bracha of She'asa li nes b'makom hazeh for you, that made a miracle, that you were able to stay alive in this place over here. And this was the first of many places. And you can see the dancing and the singing that took place here. Okay, from the happiness that we had. Okay, of you being here. We continued on from here, and I have been a person, an educator in Poland since 1993. I want you to know this was my first time to the mass grave in Brzostek. I've been to many mass graves across Poland and across Lithuania and in Estonia and Latvia and other places like this, in Belarus as well. I have never been to a mass grave that has been so far up a hill, down a hill on the other side, that the Germans went out of their way completely to make sure that nobody would know what was taking place here. You found out about the story because, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Pirat's son-in-law came to speak to your mother one evening. And he was wearing a pair of shoes that was very familiar to your mother. Do you want to tell us that story quickly?
Well, we didn't know what happened to our father because we escaped and we didn't know. One day, Mr. Pirat's son-in-law came to the forest, bring us a piece of bread. Mommy looks at his shoes and she says, "Where did you get those shoes?" And he didn't want to tell her in the beginning. But finally she kind of insisted. He says, "Okay, let's straighten this out." And what he says to her, one day the Germans came and they demanded young Polish men that they need to work. They came with a few trucks, they loaded up this men, and they went to this forest. And they told them, dig a big, big hole here. You have the signs how big this has to be. We will tell you how deep in everything. They work and work. Finally, when the Germans were satisfied, they said, "Okay, you're done." They took them back to the town. Then they came back for them. They took them back, they see, going to the same location. And then when they came to the location, they see this big, big hole that they dig is full with dead bodies, naked, dead bodies. They told him, cover this whole thing. Make sure that this is going to be finished like nothing happened to this part of the forest. They did the job, and they say to them, now go. You see, there is a lot of stuff here around. Those are clothes from those people. You're allowed to take one piece for the work that you did. So he says, I was walking around and I see quite a big pot of shoes laying on his ground. And I look and I see those shoes. I recognize them. And I took this for the memory. And you know, this was the shoes of your husband. That's what I took him. And now you know that he was murdered. And he is part of this mass grave. That's how we find out what happened to my father.
Thank you. When you continue on the story with Mr. Schonwetter, you will know that the story itself goes through many different things. He will hide in forests. He will hide in pigsties, one of the most incredible stories that we know of. And there are so many stories that we'd be able to stand here and speak about. Standing by the mass grave, though, we didn't just remember Yisrael. We remembered 260 other people that were murdered here. Your father Yisrael, and 260 other people, the Jews of Pezhostek and the surrounding areas, okay, that were murdered so brutally in these places. We should know that our life and the journey that we take is not just a journey of death, but it's a journey of how we can learn the beauty of the Jewish people out of the darkness and bring it into the light as well. When we stand in front of mass graves like this, we could be just speaking about the terrible tragedy that happens. But what is what we learn from here? How do we carry on from here? And when you speak about Sarah, your mother, she does something which is incredible in the forest. One of the inspirational moments when I listen to your story is this, and it seems like something very simple, but it really sums up everything that Olami, that J-Roots does day in, day out. Your mother decided, it's true, we're sitting in the forest, we need to worry about bread, we need to worry about food, we need to worry about shelter. She was always very optimistic. But there was one thing that she wanted to be able to teach to everybody else, and that, of course, was the education. She taught you to read, or to write, I should say, the alphabet. She taught you to count. She taught the concept of Am HaSefer, the concept of the Jewish people. We're the people of the book. We're not just a people that is a people that is prepared to hide away. We continue all the time our education. And we ourselves continued from your town, and we went to the town of Lezhansk, okay, from here, to the town of Reb Melech, okay, the person who brought Hasidut into Poland. We were able to take that darkness and turn it into such simcha that you can see over here. The happiness, the songs, the love, the lights that you see over here, okay? The shmak to be a Yid. It's so good to be a Jew. From the darkness that we had in Brzostek, we were able to come and dance in this place over here and have really inspirational moments here at the tish that we ran here in the town of Lezhansk itself. You can see how everybody themselves took all of that strength from Brzostek and brought it into Reb Melech with the singing and the dancing that you have over here. Thank all the Monty guys for coming as well.
So geschmackt, wie er geht.